if you're wondering why others are succeeding in B2B marketing, but you're not, it really comes down to just one word. That's what this video is all about, okay? It comes down to reality, okay? Now, you're probably very confused by what I mean by that, okay? But what I mean by that is every single person, and stick with me here because this is a bit weird, a bit strange, every single person on this planet has a different reality, okay? That is why some people are able to succeed more so in the likes of B2B marketing than you may be. Because again, I'll just give some very, very simple examples throughout this video. But even before we jump into this, okay? This is the same with anything, okay? This can be not just with marketing, this can be with your own personal stuff. This could be money, it could be love, it could be friendship, it could be whatever it might be, okay? Everybody has a different reality based on what they were currently exposed to, okay? So one of the reasons that I see a lot of people failing in the terms of B2B is because there's a lot of exposure, unfortunately, in my opinion, in this day and age to different ads. It doesn't matter whether it is, let's say, on LinkedIn and it's a video ad. It doesn't matter whether it's on YouTube, okay, which is obviously a video ad. Let's just put LinkedIn here. It doesn't matter whether you're trying to relax later in the evening, and for you to relax, what you do is you like to scroll Instagram and TikTok, okay? So let's just say that this is TikTok, okay? Now again, I know most people wouldn't refer to TikTok as a kind of a B2B thing, but if that's where we know some of the people are, because that's where they want to relax at the end of the day, or we've got grandparents who are CEOs of B2B companies, but their kids or their grandkids are now over traveling in Australia or whatever it might be, and they want to keep up with their story, so they get TikTok. Then all of a sudden they can get served like loads of different things, okay? So here's where reality comes into this, okay? We are all served different things on these platforms, okay? We are all exposed to different things. So for example, let's say that on LinkedIn you are exposed to this shiny object of how you can instantly overnight get B2B leads, okay? On YouTube, all of a sudden, this completely different person, they've said, we figured out the one thing that most B2B companies aren't doing, which leads to B2B leads all the time, okay? And then all of a sudden on TikTok, we've got someone saying, well, actually, no, that's a bad example there. So let's say that in this particular case, that the person on TikTok, they're saying that I posted 3 TikToks and it made me, no, that's a bad idea. So three TikToks and it got me 30 qualified leads, okay? So again, this is where our assumptions and our reality, because this is what we perceive to be reality, comes into play here, okay? Because the more that you are exposed to something, okay, and the exposure I'm talking about here is easy ways to get what you want, okay? So again, you're seeing that this person, they found a new shiny object, which is let's say it's a growth hack that other people aren't using. It's a secret, and the B2B industry doesn't want you to know about this particular secret, and this is why it's so important to you, and all that sort of nonsense. This person saying, oh, we found the number one way to consistently get leads into the pipeline, blah, blah, blah. This person says, I posted 3 TikToks and I got 30 leads. Here's the script I used, blah, 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 okay? Or if you want the script, click in my description, blah, 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 any of that sort of stuff, right? So what you're constantly being exposed to is, actually, let me use a different color for this. What you're constantly being exposed to is, this is easy, this is easy, this is easy, okay? So the more that you're exposed to that, the more that your reality becomes, oh, well, this is easy. I've seen loads of people do it, okay? Because you are getting feedback loops essentially again and again and again to say, it worked for this person. You might be a bit skeptical the first time you see it, but then you go, oh, it worked for that person as well. Oh, it worked for that person as well. And you try these things and you don't get the results that you want, okay? So you are then disappointed because reality is not as easy as you thought, okay? Now, this is the problem with the reality side of things, especially in the social media age, is that is not those people's realities. Like, that is just not, okay? You're seeing a tiny little small snippet of a little bit of success that they got, okay? You're not seeing all of the stuff that goes in before that. I made a video recently where I spoke about how overnight success is not overnight success, especially in B2B, okay? But this is what we perceive to be reality once we start looking at all this sort of stuff, okay? So, another way that reality is very different for people, okay? Because again, you could be exposed to that and you could go, well, no, I know that that's not how it works. Now, for example, that's my reality, okay? That's what I'm sharing with you here. Now, that doesn't have to be your reality, but it's just a different perception, okay? But so my reality is that, well, that's not really how it works. Like, you have to put in the work behind the scenes. And my reality is different because I've been there. So my personal own exposure to these things, not to these things, but to the work that's involved to get to different places, like that builds my reality. Same with you, okay? So your reality is built by the exposure that you had, most likely the parents that you grew up with, the people that you were around, the friends that you have, all that sort of stuff, okay? They also say that, like, we're the average of the 5 people that we spend the most time with. That will build our reality, okay? So this is also the same with, look, I don't want to go too deep into this, but like, one of the things that also on the likes of specifically Facebook, it's just an absolute echo chamber for what you perceive to be true. And that if something else tries to get in there, you perceive it to be false, okay? So let's say, for example, that I'm genuinely trying to think of an example where people wouldn't be annoyed if I go on the other side of things, okay? Not that I typically tend to care about that sort of stuff. Or actually, here's an example, okay? So you, for all of your life, have perceived that the reality is that if I said to you now, what color is water? And by the way, I implore you to pause this video and leave your answer in the comments below, okay? Now, even if you didn't answer in the comments below, you're probably thinking to yourself, is that a trick question, Paul? Because water is not a color, water is actually clear, water is transparent. Well, the reality is, and this is objective reality, not subjective, but the reality is that water is actually blue, but you can only see the color of water when it's in large volumes, such as the ocean, for example, okay? So if you're in the ocean, you're standing in the ocean, and you look down at your feet, the water that's around your feet is transparent, it's colorless, okay? You can see through it. But if you actually just, not even step back, but if you go from looking down at the color of the water around your feet in the ocean, which is transparent, all you have to do is lift your head up and look at the larger ocean, and it's blue, okay? It's the same water, but it's a different color. Yet, this is what I'm saying. Water is actually blue, but it's only in large volumes that we can actually see the color of it, okay? So, hopefully now, your reality has just been blown, or your mind's just been blown, because your reality has just been changed. You always thought for your whole life and your whole reality was that water is transparent. Now you've learned that it's not, okay? It's actually blue, just only in large volumes. So that is now essentially your reality. So you can even say, like, test this out. Say this to people later. Say, yeah, I know it's a weird question, but what color is water? And they'll probably say, trick question, it's transparent, it's see-through, it's not a color. And then you can say it's actually blue, okay? Now, those people can choose to believe you or not. You may not even believe me now, okay? But whether you believe me or not, that's where these different realities come in, okay? Because you could say that to somebody later and they go, no, it's not, it's clear. If I turn on the tap, I see it's clear. If I have a glass of water, I can see through it, it's clear, okay? Stop talking nonsense. People will absolutely fight, in some cases, to the death, to defend their reality, okay? Even though it could be completely different to somebody else's reality, okay? And unfortunately, what we see is that a lot of wars that are currently happening at the moment in the world are because some people's beliefs and their realities are different to the people that they're fighting, let's say, okay? Because the people on this side, they believe one thing, the people on this side, they believe another thing, okay? So their realities are totally different. And unfortunately, like I said, this goes into all sorts of, all aspects of life, okay? So something as major as war, or something as simple as what color is water, okay? So again, it's because of the exposure that these people have had on this side that they believe one thing. Because of the exposure that these people have had on this side, they believe one thing or another thing. And the more exposure that each side gets to the same thing, it's a feedback loop, okay? Either a positive feedback loop, well, whether they are objectively, again, I'm not sure if objectively is the right term, but whether they are correct or not, okay, objectively, let's say, they've had so much reinforcement, okay, that what they believe is correct, that it's so hard to have any other perception in there, okay? So again, you're constantly seeing this, and to the best of my knowledge, nobody else in the world makes business content that says, actually, it's not easy. It's quite a difficult thing. It's going to take you a lot of time to do. I think I'm the only person in the world that does that because it's not sexy. It's not what people want to hear, okay? But I would rather speak what is my reality, okay? So again, this is unfortunately a lot of exposure that people get. So because you see these people getting success with the B2B side of things, and they're getting new leads all the time, they're getting pipelines, they're hitting targets, blah, 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 you assume that, well, why can't I do it? And then you try these things, and it's not as simple as these people made it out, okay? You can't just post 3 TikToks and have 30 leads, okay? It's not gonna work. I absolutely challenge anybody that's watching this video, post me 3 TikToks and show me where your 30 leads are coming from. It just doesn't work, okay? Yes, that person may have found something crazy, something different. I'm not saying that they didn't, but it may not work for you the same way it worked for everybody else. And again, if you're gonna constantly be hopping from shiny object to different growth hack, you're just on a constant roller coaster, okay? Which, if you saw before, I made a video about being on the lead gen roller coaster, okay? So again, if we go back to reality more so, let's bring it back to business here. So let's say that there's 2 different people, 2 different perceptions. And on one side, this person, that's a terrible drawing, but we'll stick with it for now. That one person, they have a perception that, well, if I made some cold calls, people would actually answer the phone and we'd get more calls on the calendar. So I'm going to make cold calls, okay? So yes, that person will make cold calls. This person, they say, oh, but all I've ever heard from people before, and I know this to be true, subjectively, is that people don't like cold calls. Cold calls are icky. If someone gets a cold call, they slam the phone down. They'll say horrible things to me on the phone, and I have a fear of rejection. So I don't want to be annoying people. I don't want people to be saying, no, I've no interest in what you do. Don't ever call me again. So that person says, no, I'm not going to do any cold calls. That's not for me, okay? Because again, there's different perceptions, okay? That person's perception is, well, I've watched The Wolf of Wall Street 100 times and I know that if I make a cold call, I'll get some business, okay? That person's perception is, I've only ever heard that people don't like getting cold calls. I don't like getting cold calls. I think it's annoying, so I wouldn't want to do that to anybody else, okay? So of these 2 people, okay, which have different realities, realistically here, that's what we're talking about, okay? They have different realities. Who will end up getting more leads in the pipeline and therefore more deals closed and more revenue for the business, okay? It's not going to be the person who does nothing, okay? How could it be that person? So they are absolutely getting nothing. Whereas that person, okay, just because their perception is different, then that person goes, yes, I will make some cold calls. So let's say they make 100 cold calls, and again, just for numbers' sake, let's say that they make 100 calls and one person says, yes, I'm interested. I'd like to book a call, okay? So they have 1 new lead, okay? They have 1 lead over that person, okay? Now you might think, well, why make 100 calls for 1 lead? I could do something else. That's not really the point of what I'm saying here, okay? I'm saying that perception, you know what? Just to try and get the point across, let's say they make 100 calls and 10 people book in, okay? So now you're all of a sudden, you're like, okay, 10 new leads is actually not too bad. So that person has 10 new leads in their pipeline. You've got nothing from this, okay? Because your perception and your reality was that people don't like cold calls. This person's reality and perception was people like getting calls when I can help them solve their problems, okay? Why would you not think that way? So what also can sometimes happen, now this is rare because as I said earlier, people will fight so hard to defend what they believe because it's part of your identity, okay? So if your identity is, oh, I'm not a cold caller, I don't make cold calls, you'll do everything to fight that, okay? Even if you know realistically you should and you can get results from that, you will do everything that you can to fight that, okay? Because you don't want to make cold calls because you feel that they're not nice, you feel that they're wrong, okay? So let's say that instead of constantly fighting it and just being an immediate straight out, no, that's not me, that's not happening, I won't be doing that. What you do is you go, well, now I've been exposed to this, and that data actually says otherwise. That data says if I call the right people who I can actually realistically help, who would actually want to hear from me, then actually, yeah, that makes sense that they would want to hear from me. So maybe I'll make a couple of cold calls. So now all of a sudden you make 10 cold calls and one person says, yes, I'm very interested. I'd like to know more. Now what happens is a positive feedback loop goes into your head to say, ooh, actually, what we thought before, that's not true. And this is another thing that humans are terrible at, okay? If you're in an argument with somebody, okay, or debate, okay? And you're saying, no, it's this because of that. And they're saying, no, it's this because of that. Even if in your head something clicks for you and you go, and you don't say this out loud, but in your head something clicks and you say to yourself, oh, actually, they're right. Humans are not going to go, sorry, yeah, actually, do you know what? I'm absolutely wrong. I just thought about there for a second, and what you said makes a lot of sense. That's really true. I'm sorry that I debated you on that. When you put it the way that you did, that makes a lot of sense. That's very, very, very rare. Most humans, even if they know they've clocked that they're wrong and that person's right, it's so embarrassing to go, actually, you're right. We won't do it as humans. We'll continue to fight, even if we know we're wrong, okay? So in this case, what's going to happen is you've fought against it and gone, okay, I'll make some cold calls. You make 10 cold calls and one person books in a call. Now a positive feedback loop goes into your head and says, oh, actually, this works. Because you have a positive feedback, now what you do is you go, well, if I make 100 calls, and then every time that you go from 2 calls, that's more positive feedback, to 3 calls, more positive feedback, all of a sudden you're like, hey, this stuff works. I'm going to do this again. So you get 10 new leads, okay? It's very, very hard for a human to go, I would like to change my reality for the better, okay? Even if they know this can happen over here, the initial belief is, nah, it's icky. People don't want cold calls. People will slam the phone down. People will tell me I'm a horrible person. And even though in this day and age, you can't slam your phone down, okay? That's such an old cold call thing to say. People literally cannot slam the phone down on you these days, okay? That's not how it works. So again, that's where these positive feedback loops then come in, because you were open to your reality being not what you actually thought reality was. So reality is not objective to everybody, it's subjective based on your exposure, okay? So it's really important to understand that if you're being exposed to all of this sort of stuff up here, you then have the assumption this is so easy to do, then when you do it, it doesn't work. So you then have the assumption that these people are all scammers, liars, what they do doesn't work, even though it 100% could actually be working for them. That may have worked for them specifically and it doesn't work for you. That may work for them specifically and you try it and yeah, you might get some results, but it's not exactly the results that you wanted. Therefore, your expectations weren't met, which means that you're upset. That's just how humans are upset by different things if expectations aren't met. So again, there's all these different things that are happening all the time that will actually either determine whether you're going to be getting good results or getting bad results. But that's why if you're currently trying to get results in B2B and it's not working for you, typically what you're going to find is that you're stuck in this loop to try and find the new thing, the new trend, the new craze, the new tactic, the secret that everybody else doesn't have that, but I'll have, and it means that I can just sit back and do nothing, because that's what we all want realistically. Most of us are just doing everything or all that we need to do to get by in our jobs. And if that's you, I was actually going to say I'm sorry, but I'm not, because that's just the reality. Again, that is most people's reality. They'll do just enough to get by so they don't get fired. But if you want to actually really do something extreme, then you're going to have to push the boat out a little bit. And pushing the boat out a little bit requires you to have a different perception on reality. Because if your reality right now is that you're hitting target all the time, okay, which is great, don't get me wrong, but you know you can do a lot better, you have to change your reality, okay? And changing your reality also means changing your identity, because your identity then could be, let's say that your identity is that you're hitting your KPIs all the time, okay? And let's say that your KPIs is 30 new leads per month, 1 per day, okay? People, again, will do everything they can to defend their identity, okay? And this is, again, a subconscious thing. So you may think to yourself, oh, wouldn't it be nice to go to 60? And actually, I could definitely get 60 leads per month, because all I'd have to do is, instead of doing 100 calls, I just do 200, and then I send out more email outreach and I do more SEO. Yeah, I could definitely do that. That's 100% achievable. But it's very hard for you to shift your identity, because your identity currently is, but I only work this amount of effort each day. I only do this amount and I'm still okay and I hit target, and therefore I get paid and no one's angry at me and I won't get fired and lose my job. And if I try to do this and it doesn't work, then that's on me. And if I do this and it does work, then that means that new number is going to be expected all the time. And that's going to put a lot of pressure on me. And I don't want that pressure on me. And I don't want to do these things. And if I don't hit those new numbers, then I'll lose my job. And do you know what? It's actually it's safer just to stay with this identity, okay? But you'll just stay there the whole entire time. The only people that exceed any of this sort of stuff, excuse me, are the people that have to really fight against their identity to change their reality to double their output. Again, that's where everybody wants to be, okay? Excuse me. So I know that was a bit of a weird video. It's probably something you've probably never come across before. Hopefully some of the things that I said in this were, they made some sense at least. This, like, we talk about this sort of stuff all the time within the B2B scale solution, as well as showing you different systems of how you can get B2B leads constantly from implementing different systems. But again, you have to understand all this before you implement those systems, or else they won't work because you won't do it, okay? So again, I don't know any other people who are talking about this sort of stuff, but again, if you want to learn more about this sort of stuff and the systems that you can implement very easily to get B2B leads consistently, you can check out the first link in the description. So hopefully that wasn't too weird, and I'll see you in the next one.